An academy is more than simply a set of residences and a set of common spaces and a place where people can eat together, have coffee together, and a set of studios and set of studies and so on and so forth. An academy has to have a library in it. A great academy has to have a great library. The blessing of the American Academy is that so many wonderful people contributed to the creation of this restored and revitalized library that was there from the very beginning.
We've really been working on this for, I would say, over 10 years.
It started with a simple code requirement, but it became quite a major project.
We started in August. We moved all the books out in August.
So the construction, actual construction, started in September and 06.
And then we moved the books back in July and August of this year.
So construction was 11 months, but the library itself was closed for 1 year.
It's hard to say whether it was renovation, restoration. There are all these words in Italian like ristrutturazione, ripristinato. It was a combination because on the main floor of the library, which is the original library with the old woodwork, the original library as it was designed by McKim, Mead & White around 1912, you could call it a restoration. And then on the lower floors, we did many more radical changes.
There was conservation of the historical woodwork. There was definitely a great expansion in terms of rooms. We created new reading rooms entirely, new spaces really, in terms of forms and height and overall dimension. Added floors, I mean that's a big change on something that, so you could say renovation, you know, expansion from a certain point of view. When you change something is what do you base your decisions on? You know, what is it that's driving the change? And I would say the mission of the institution and the life and what the place means for the fellow. We hope that we based all of our decisions.
Our first priority was to make more space for books and more space for readers within our existing footprint, as they call it. One of the things we did was a really big job is we integrated two collections.
Basically, the books were split, and then when they brought it back in, they merged them.
If you wanted a book on Bernini or you wanted a book on Pompeii, there are books on Pompeii in the main reading room, there are books on Pompeii downstairs, books on Bernini upstairs.
There wasn't one book that went out and came back on the same shelf where it came from.
The books are breathing for the first time. They were tight before. They were crammed in before, and now there is space for growth in all of the different rooms of the library. So our books are much happier now.
We strove throughout for improvement without change, because that's kind of our motto for the preservation of any of these buildings and any of the spaces. People love the Academy, and they are very, very protective of the spaces that they know. Whether they've been here not for 25 years or whether they've been here as recently as last year, everybody thinks the moment they were here was the golden age and that moment has to be protected. So we take that seriously, and luckily this building hasn't changed very much after all these years.
If you walk into the library, into the historic place, into the historic rooms, the ones that were built in 1912, when this building was built, you know, on the main floor, nothing much has changed, except that all the wood has been restored, everything has been rewired, every desk has computer access, you know, and has internet. We have a reference desk on the first floor, which we never had before. And we removed the catalog, the old paper catalog, which is no longer really needed on an everyday basis because now we have an online catalog. If you go downstairs, though, there are great improvements. We've created what is basically a new reading room in the Cryptoporticus, where the folios are. And the folios now are stored in these beautiful cabinets with drawers that get pulled out to preserve them. We've added mezzanines. We've added quite a bit of space through these catwalks We've also completely repainted, cleaned out and repainted the old metal shelvings. And most important, the compact shelvings, which means that technically we should have enough room in our library until the year 2030. The American Academy's library is important first to serve our own community. Secondly, and I think this is just as important, to serve the community of Rome and Italy, of scholars and artists here in the city. It's a way that we have participated in the intellectual discussion in the city, but also it's a way that we have of giving back to Rome and to Italy for all that we take from it.
The library is the heart of our institution, and it's especially, I think, important to our presence here in Rome because scholars outside of our group also use it on a daily basis. International scholars who have the need for the resources they find here. We have a great strength in classical archaeology and Roman topography, so that's generally what attracts them. We have open stacks, and that's a very special thing in Rome. So even if they didn't know what they were looking for when they came in and they just began browsing, very soon every single person becomes fascinated. So it's a very important place for coming together, both as members of our own community and also meeting counterparts, scholars meeting other scholars who are working here. Many of them come every single day. Sometimes they stay for lunch, sometimes they stay for coffee, but a lot of relationships are built out of the use of the library.
In both tangible and intangible ways, the library and all the rooms attached to it, like the Rare Book Room and several others, are magnificent.
It makes a really pleasant impression. You really feel good working in that library. You feel as if you're part of something that was there before you and will go on after you.
It may look like nothing has changed to people who haven't been there a lot, but I'd come down on the side of everything has changed, and everything has changed for easy access, for proper cataloging, for making more space, for making more comfort for people who come in. It's been thought through to the nth degree.
No matter where a library is in the world, it has three basic jobs: to collect things, to preserve them, and to let somebody see them. I mean, that's it. From the origins of libraries themselves, 5,000 years ago until today, those are the three basic functions. So for the New York Public Library, the scale is immense. The Library of the American Academy in Rome obviously is different in terms of scale, but the collections are selected with very, very great care to serve the research interests of a certain kind of clientele. So again, it's the basic paradigm of what you collect, who you let see it, and what your attitude towards preserving these things is for future generations.
We're moving into a time when digital things are becoming more and more exciting, more and more comprehensive. They still don't replace the books. You need both, and that's what makes it really hard and interesting to run a library right now.
I predict the need for physical space will not grow, that the need to have more of a global community will grow. We will need much more technology so that people all over the world can access what we do there.
I think there are at least three things that are really critical about the Academy Library's future. I think we need to be clear that it's a classical collection and it should keep itself up as a real research-grade classical collection. We need to think really hard about what we're doing with electronic resources, and then we need to keep the rest of the library as good as it can possibly be, given the limits of our budget and the limits of space. And that seems to me to be the task of the next generation.
In 1913, the librarian that presided over the new library was Albert Van Buren, and he had a vision of what the library should be. It's a place of learning. One of the things I like about libraries is that they're great equalizers. You can be Professor Herr Doctor Professor in your office, or you could be some lowly student at the Intercollegiate Center of Classical Studies. When you come to the library, you leave all that behind you, and you just come to learn. And so that I think of libraries as being wonderful, great, democratic, humanistic institutions.
That formulation, Thomas Jefferson, information is the currency of a democracy, I've always thought is the founding principle of American libraries, and by extension creates the link between what we do on a daily basis, and now through the internet 24 hours a day, between what we do and the spirit of democracy. And the fundamental charge that the library has in our context, but this applies to the Academy in Rome as well, is to open its doors widely to its kind of audiences and give everybody a crack at what we have.
We dedicate this library to the memory of Arthur and the presence of Janet and their joint commitment to this great resource.
She's taking her time. On your mark.
What would you like to ask me about the library?
Let me talk a bit, and maybe that little bon mot comes out.
It's a comfortable place, and it's nurtured many, many fine scholars.
It's been my favorite place for many years, over half a century.
I'm excited to use this library because it has a lot of history.
It's a very supportive place with all of the books, and you feel a lot of energy from past work here.
It's one of the richest collections of classical studies and archaeology in the world.
And the only thing that's missing is Albert Van Buren used to be sitting at that desk there, always there.
This library is a rich treasure.
The cross-fertilization is absolutely marvelous. The library reflects that.
Well, the library is the soul of the Academy.
I think it's the best possible year to be a fellow because A, we have the new library.
Actually, to me, the most striking thing is just the sense of breathable space.
I'll be using the library constantly for my project. Actually, I've already checked out half of it. It's in my study upstairs.
Leaving the States and coming over?
Well, I came over in '48, okay, and there were only about 8 or 10 of us.
I am very happy to see this library now in this magnificent, beautiful shape. All right?